In the last section, we added a method to find an image inside of the data store, the image store, to determine whether or not an image has already been loaded. If it has found the image and it has been loaded, it just returns the image. If it hasn't, then it's going to attempt to go ahead and retrieve the image itself. So we need to now implement the function getImage, which is going to reach out to Imgur and retrieve a particular image given its ID. So let's do that now. We'll stub out the method getImage, and it has an ID, and we'll do our comma at the end here. So the next thing we need to do is figure out what route on the, or what API endpoint on the Imgur side we want to run this query against. So let's flip over to the Imgur documentation. And if we look at our API endpoints and then gallery and then image, we'll find it right here. So to get information on a specific image, we just have to query gallery/image/ID. So that's pretty darn straightforward. Let's go ahead and make use of it. We're going to ping this endpoint just like we do any other Imgur API. So we'll just say API.get, and this is going to get an ID. And then when that request is complete, we'll get our function back with some amount of JSON, like so. Now, one thing I want to do really quick is just make sure we bind this function. Cool. Okay, so here's another thorny point. We store all of our images as this.images, and that data type is an array. So we put all of our images into an array and assign it to this.images. So we need to handle the case here in which images has not already been defined as an array. So to do that, we're just going to say if this.images already exists, well then fantastic, we've already fetched some number of images. We can just say this.images.push json.data, and we're basically just going to toss another object into our image collection. It's just another entry inside of the array. If we haven't fetched any images, however, so if this.images doesn't exist yet, we'll say this.images is json.data. But specifically, or most importantly, we're going to wrap it inside of an array. And we do this so that it's still compatible with functions like find up here. So we know that our array is still, or our data type of this.images is always going to be an array. Finally, inside of our then function, we'll go ahead and trigger change because we just finished a fetch of data and we want to go tell the world that, hey, we just got some amount of new content. Please go ahead and re-render yourself if you want to. So let's go ahead and save this, and then we'll flip over to image detail. So now that we've wired up our find method in the image store, let's make use of it inside of our onChange method here. So we are not making use of the arguments that get passed in anymore, because this image right here is an array of all of our images. In fact, we only want one specific image, so we'll just say imagestore.find this.props.params.id. Okay, next, since we're using state and we have this key image on here, we need to make sure that we default our state. So we'll set up getInitialState. Oops, there we go. And in here, we'll say image is null. Finally, we need to set up our component will mount. And we're going to add an action here to go and fetch the image whenever this component is about to mount. Now, there's really, at this point in time in the application, there's no ability for a user to trigger a re-render of this component without first navigating away. So unlike the topic list, or excuse me, the topic component, we don't need to implement component will receive props here. We only need to implement component will mount. So let's go ahead and call the action. we'll say actions.getImage, and we haven't defined this action yet. We're going to do it in just a second. And when we get an image, we always want to be able to pass the image that we're currently trying to work with right now, which is this.props.params.id, because we're pulling that ID out of the URL. Let's not forget at the top, actions. Cool. The last thing we need to do is add that action getImage to our actions object, which is fortunately the easiest part. We'll just say getImage. I'm going to save our actions object, come back over to image detail, and just to make sure that everything worked out just fine, let's go ahead and we'll say this.state.image inside of our render function. So let's save this, hop open to the app, and all right, so this looks pretty good right here. So I see the ID, I see what is likely the title of the image. This looks like the image type, and we've got some, I don't know, some numbers in here, etc., etc. It looks like this is what we want to be seeing here. Let's try another one. We'll go to right here. Oh, that was the same one. So this is looking pretty good right here. I watched that Futurama episode, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is looking pretty good here. In the next section, let's go ahead and style this component.